we've come this far, I don't know how I'm supposed to tell you the truth about myself.
So we are arrived at Monas at 7 o'clock in the morning. We are now in the parking lot. I also go with April
Today at Monas.
and Fianda.
Say hi.
Hello.
Alisa. Hi. And Fianda.
Okay guys, see you. How do you feel about Monas, Fianda?
Takjubkan.
How about you, April?
Happy, I'm very
Do
happy.
you think this is crowded like many people?
Oh my god.
Many people?
Rame sekali ya.
Yes.
Saya puyeng ngeliatnya kayak kebanyakan orang.
Hi guys.
Hello.
Today we are at the Monas, right?
Like.
Yeah, right. Okay. So in Monas, it's really like clean, right?
Yes, right. Yes.
Clean,
Very,
and
very
then there's not hot. It's like cold, but it's like the air is like good, and then the view is also good. Like we can see Monas, we also can see gardens, plants, and plenty of flowers. Okay guys, see you.
See you.
Guys, you should look at the view. The view is really, really amazing. It's really amazing. Okay. There's also people who is doing like senam. Okay, now we are gonna buy ticket with my friends too. Okay, guys. So we're now already entered the hall of the Museum Monas, and now we're gonna like, this is the hall. I'm gonna show it to you guys. So we're gonna like step on the stair first before we go to the museum. We're now at the front of the museum. The Monas location is very strategic. There are also station Gambir and MRT, and also like busway. So there's a lot of way to go to Monas. So this is, we're entering the Monas. Come at the museum. This is very dark. Okay, I think we're gonna start like over there. This is the Museum of Monas. The Museum Sejarah Nasional. Okay, so I've just like spread it away from my friends. Now I'm gonna explain to you guys like 10 objects in this museum, like the miniature, because Monas is really like full of culture. The Museum Monas, there's like Armada Majapahit, and then the history of our proclamation of our Independence Day. So I'm gonna explain it like few of them. They all are 51 miniatures in here.
So this is the first miniature I found. The miniature is called the Fleet of Majapahit.
So after the exit of the prominent figure Gajah Mada, disturbance arose under the reign of King Hayam Wuruk. The new sovereign strove to enforce the people's property and defense of all territory were given high priority. The fleet was strengthened in order to safeguard Nusantara's unity and resist attempts to create disorder by Chinese fleet, among others. Dimana artinya itu akan saya jelaskan juga. Jadi armada perang Majapahit ini, miniatur ini tentang armada perang Majapahit abad ke-14. Nah, sepeninggalan Gajah Mada itu timbul kesulitan dalam pemerintahan Hayam Wuruk. Pemerintah yang baru berusaha untuk mempertahankan keutuhan Nusantara dengan mengambil tindakan yang ditunjukkan kepada kemakmuran rakyat dan keamanan daerah-daerah. Hal ini dibuktikan dengan memperkuat armada perang untuk menjaga keutuhan Nusantara dan mengatasi usaha pengacauan antara lain oleh armada Cina. The Battle of Sunda Kelapa, June 22, 1527. In 1522, King Pajajaran signed an agreement with Henry Queen Lim, which gave the Portuguese the right to build a fortress at Sunda Kelapa. To prevent Portuguese influence, Sultan Tenggono of Demak sent Fatahillah to West Java with an army, and in 1527, Fatahillah succeeded in occupying the harbor of Sunda Kelapa. The site of the Bay of Sunda Kelapa began when the Portuguese tried to embark with the force to build a fortress. Fatahillah defeated the Portuguese fleet on June 22, 1527, and the name of Sunda Kelapa was changed into Jayakarta, which means City of Victory. So Jayakarta is City of Victory. Okay guys, this is the miniature. You can see the boat. Yeah, right, the boat. Okay, we're gonna next to the next miniature. So that is how the Battle of Sunda Kelapa. It's really a good history. Okay, so now we at the miniature of the Makassar War, which is the Makassar War is happened at the 1654 until 1668. This is the miniature of the Makassar War. Okay, so the history was Sultan Hasanuddin of Makassar adopting a policy of free trade with all nations. Upon his port for foreign traders who desired to trade with Makassar, observing the growth and the development of Sultan's policy, the Duke East Indies Company or VOC, with their system of monopoly, decided to oppose this, and a popular uprising broke out. So this is the Pattimura uprising or perlawanan Pattimura at 1817, led by Pattimura and Christina Marta Taihahu. The people of Moluccas revolted against the Dutch government and succeeded in capturing the Dutch fortress Duties on Sapporo Island, the Dutch, based on the London Convention in 1814 reclaimed their sovereignty in Indonesia and re-established their policy of monopoly by reinforcing their method of exploitation. So this is the miniature of Patimura uprising. So next, I'm gonna show you guys the Diponegoro War. This is the miniature of Diponegoro War. So there's also the miniature of Diponegoro War, which is happened in 1825 and 1830. The 5-year war in Central Java, or the Diponegoro War, was the most prominent in the series of popular uprisings against the Dutch. The Prince of Diponegoro held the initiative and upper hand till 1828. About 15,000 Dutch soldiers lost their lives in this war, and it also cost a lot of money. The Dutch applied the fortress system to decrease the Prince Diponegoro operational areas and drive him southward, but without success. Pretending that they were willing to negotiate, the Dutch lured the prince into captivity on March 28, 1830. So this is the miniature of Kartini, which happened in 1879 until 1904. The movement to achieve progress at the end of X century was confirmed by the increasing demands for education. But the public opinion was still under great influence of the prevailing tradition, especially for women. Born in Central Java, Kartini fought for the equal rights for the Indonesian woman and her liberation from the shackles and prejudice of customary law and tradition. A collection of her letters to friends in which she expressed her thoughts and opinion was subsequently published as a book titled Letter of Japanese Princess. So this is the miniature of the youth pledge, October 28, 1928. After Budiotama had been founded in the year of 1908, many youth regional organizations representing the many islands of Indonesia came into existence. Through the many times joint meetings, these young people gradually understood that they had to be fused into one large and strong organization. In the spirit of national unity, to unite all the youth movements, the Second Youth Congress in Jakarta proclaimed the Youth Pledge for one country, one nation, and one language, Indonesia. This is so amazing, okay? Okay guys, remember, one country, one nation, one language, Indonesia. Merdeka! This miniature, this one is also being taught in my lessons class. So So this is the Japanese forced labor. Japanese forced labor. In March 1942, the commander-in-chief of the Dutch Armed Forces unconditionally surrendered to the Japanese Expeditionary Army in the name of the Allied force in Kalijati, West Java. In their effort to win the Pacific War, the Japanese occupation army exploited Indonesia's human and natural resources. The people were driven into forced labor at vital military installations and buildings. These people, called Romusha, had to build military bases, airfields, roads, and bridges. Many thousands of them died of exhaustion, and of lack of food and medicine. This is very unhuman. This is not right. We have to have human rights. The Romusha is not having like the thing of a human too. The Battle of Surabaya, November 10, 1945. In October 1945, the Allied force consisted not only of British troops but also the Dutch troops with their NECA officers embarked in Surabaya with the text to disarm the Japanese army and to recover the Allied prisoner of war. Many incidents occurred that broke out into many battles. In one incident, Brigadier General Malabi was killed. At this, the Allied force issued an ultimatum to the Indonesians to hand over their Japanese captured arms. At the latest on November 10, 1945 at 6 o'clock. The people did not heed this and fierce fighting broke out. Thousands of Indonesians lost their lives. This fierce popular resistance was subsequently commemorated as Heroes' Day. The miniature, the Proclamation of Independence, August 17 in 1945. Following the Japanese surrender and defeat to Allied force, a secret meeting was held by the Indonesians on the night at August 16, 1945 at Jalan Imam Bonjol, 1, Jakarta. It was agreed that the next morning Indonesian independence was to be proclaimed. The text of the proclamation was drawn up, signed by Sukarno and Muhammad Hatta. In the morning of the 17th of August 1945 at exactly 10 o'clock, Sukarno, accompanied by Muhammad Hatta, read the proclamation of Indonesia's independence. The proclamation ceremony was also attended by prominent figures and leaders of the national independence movement organizations and many thousand people.
Nanti aku di dalamnya jangan lupa.
Okay guys, so we are now arrived at Museum Gajah. Here is the Museum Gajah. Oh, it's really shiny. So I've walked from Monash to Museum Gajah by feet and with my friends, and then we're now gonna like entering the Museum Gajah. Catch up for me, okay? So there's a locker for Museum Nasional. Tempat penyimpanan. Itu yang udah ada kunci. This is my friend. Tiana is checking her bag. Yes. April is also a giver. Oh yeah. We should wash our hands. Hey guys, so there is some of like string as a source of sound when in the century of 10 to 11th century. It's Java. Okay, so musical instruments that use string as their source of sound are the chordophone group of musical instruments. Chordophone serves a melody, carrier, picking or sweeping with a bow is the one common way to play, like this one. Okay, so string musical instruments have been around since the dawn of time. Reliefs, this pitting, the piping, people playing strange musical instrument can be found at Borobudur Temple and then Sari Temple and Prambanan Temple. There are various types of string musical instruments. How to play them in the list of ethnic groups in Indonesia such as Basapi, Sampe, Geso-Geso, Tarawangsa, Lute, Siter, Jungga, Tehyan, Gambus, Fiddle, and so on. Okay, so I'm gonna like show it to you guys. This is sasando. Sasando is used to accompany the traditional songs or dances. The sound can be synchronized with the gong. Sasando is classified into two types. Sasando go with a pentatonic scale and violin sasando with a diatonic scale. The violin sasando has 43 strings that imitate Western violin notes that were influenced by the Portuguese. Okay, sasando. Sasando is like from bamboo, daun lontar, kawat, rote. So it's from like bamboo, lontar leaves, wire rope, and it's from like East Nusa Tenggara. Sasando, it's from East Nusa Tenggara. This is the picture, guys. Ta-da! Okay, the next object is dambus. Dambus is from the Bangka Belitung. Dambus, it's made from like jackfruit wood, pineapple fiber, Bangka Belitung, Sumatra. So dambus is from Sumatra. Dambus is a string musical instrument based on Middle East instruments, with a deer head ornament as its unique feature. Dambus is played along with tawak-tawak or xylophone and drums to accompany the Bedincak dance at the harvest feast. Dambus is also used to accompany verses about social interaction, advice, and environment. This is a dambus, guys. It looks like a guitar, right? But it doesn't have the holes. Okay, so the third object is there is kasapi. Kasapi is also like a stringed musical instrument. Kasapi is from Kalimantan, southeastern Kalimantan. Okay, kasapi is made from wood, rattan, and then southeastern Kalimantan. It's where it's from. Kasapi. Kasapi is a traditional musical stringed instrument of the Dayak Ngaju people of Central Kalimantan. Kasapi is played during the harvest ritual ceremonies to accompany the hudok dance along with the gongs, drums, and flutes. This similar musical instrument is known as sampe or sape in the Dayak Kenyah Kayan Kelabit communities. This kasapi is adorned with also motifs of fertility and protection symbol. Now we're gonna go to the next object.
I'm the one in my zone. 다른 애들은 빼앗. 저 취한 바보들 좀 봐. 이건 무슨 일이야? 그럴 필요 없어, 난 it's okay.
Okay, we're gonna go to the next collection. So many culture. Oh, this is the language of Indonesians. There's so many languages in Indonesian.
We don't need nothing, oh no. I'm giving you my invitation. 아주면 pay attention. 궁금대는 비주얼 번역이 태워. 뒤져박힌 난리다.
So this is our Prasasti Padro. Prasasti Padro is a supplement to agreement between a Sundanese King Prabu Sundawisa and Heraclium, which was previously written on a paper date 21 August 1522. Padro was built at a place promised to be the construction site of a fort, namely in Kalapa, Sunda Kalapa. The promised fort never transpired as the Kalapa fell under the rule of Demak's army, led by Fatakila. So Padro is batu. So this is Prasasti Lontor. Prasasti Lontor, a boundary marker for a Perkan or net maker, then with the inscription Disen Steen Piger is opgeset page order van Javan den Broik anno 1706. This stone fence was made by order of Jan van den Broek in 1706. Broek was a Perkiner or nutmeg farmer in Banda. This is the Prastasi, guys. The Prastasi is called Prastasi Lontor. Guys, this is very cool. Look at this. This is very cool. Okay. Oh. Wow. Okay, so now we are at the... What is this room called? I don't know. I wanted to show you guys in this room there is a perahu lancang kuning. I'm gonna flip it back, okay? Perahu lancang kuning or lancang kuning boats. Lancang means pra or boat. With the arrival of Islam, pra became known as lancang kuning. Big lancang kuning are royal boats, while the smaller ones are used to carry offerings during customary rituals. So this boat is like royal boats. So this is a royal boats. You can see the structural is very like a royal things. So this is like the transportation of produce like Perati and then Noken, Baju Lada, Etahe, and then Keranjang, Tokeng, Sat. So we're now at the Islamic Civilization Room. There are so many objects. So I'm gonna show you guys the Wayang Punakawan first. Okay, this is the Wayang. You can take a look. Punakawan characters is in Japanese. Wayang included Semar, Goreng, Patruk, and Bagong. The Wayang Punakawan storyline is very inspiring for the community because it presents entertaining shows while also conveying important message. Wayang Punakawan serves an advisor, a friend to chat with, and a reminder to the knight to always do good in the story. Sunan Kalijaga modified Wayang Punakawan as dakwah medium for spreading Islam. In terms of music, Sunan Kalijaga composed several Japanese songs that contain Islamic messages in their poems. One important lesson from this is that Islam entered the archipelago peacefully and was able to adapt to local culture.
Satin shawls. Oh, the music that plays as you move through a maze in the haze of your pure delight. You're caught.
There's also few kind of gambus, Islamic Islamic share, and for performing arts there are gambus, kinds of gambus, and then there are also rebana kotek. Rebana kotek. Rebana is from Java, and then there's rebana, and then this is the bus Banten. It's from Banten.
Okay, so in the bus Banten or
on the headstone of the king's daughter. From Minyetujo, her gravestone not only contains information about the person buried, namely the great Queen Bisa or Wanisa bint al-Sultan, the late Al-Malik al-Zahir, Saraf al-Din Khan bin Pulka Khan bin Bad Yat Khan, who died on December 4, 1389, but also Malay written poetry in Arabic script. The inscriptions contains: after the migration of the Prophet, the lover who has died 781 years, the month of Zulhijjah 14 days, Friday, Queen of Faith, God's mercy for your majesty, the Baru Bashar family, she has the right to Kedah and Pasai digging in the sea and land the universe. Oh Allah, my Lord of the universe, put your majesty into God's heaven. So on the next, we got Kendi. This Kendi or jug or buyung came from the panel area. The jug's head and body were decorated with tendrils motif. The tendril motif means that a human being must have a good social spirit and be generous. The tendril motif also contains the hope that the life and the fortune that comes will always be continuous and never stop given to humans. On this jug, Islamic influence are represented by the beautiful variety of chandels and crows. The portrayal of animate living beings is frequently avoided in Islamic cultures. Motifs or ornaments which stress the nature of abstraction and denaturalization. This jug is put next to the groom during the wedding ceremony. So ma'am, is this your first time to go to Museum Gajah?
Yes.
This is your first time?
Yeah.
What are you looking for?
Buddhist and Hindu art.
Buddhist and Hindu art.
Yeah.
Do you also interested in like Indonesian culture, like such as curries and then the music?
Yes, but I came to the museum not to eat, but to look at the art.
To look at the art, yeah. What places have you like come in? Have you go?
No, I've been only downstairs.
Oh, you just got
I've just
here.
arrived,
Oh,
yes.
you just arrived.
Yeah.
Oh. What do you curious about? Except, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
If it's not about the Buddha or Hindu, what do you curious about? Yeah, like the art.
I'm just interested in the architecture of Indonesia.
How did you go to this museum? By what?
I'm just staying in town, and I just decided to visit the museum. It's my last day. I'm flying back in 6 hours.
Oh my god. To where?
Amsterdam.
Amsterdam. Oh, good.
Yes.
I hope you very enjoy the museum because it's full of like our culture and there's such as like many music instruments in there and then the mic.
Yes, I'm looking forward to seeing that. Thank you very much. Good
Thank you
luck
very much.
with your project. Thank you. Okay, have a good day.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
We have already arrived. We just arrived in Taman Mini Indonesia Indah with my friends. This is very hot, yeah, because it's like 1 a.m. 1 a.m.
Yes.
2 a.m.
2 a.m.
Yeah, it's already like 2 a.m. So now we are going to searching for the houses of Indonesia. Bye. Okay guys, so the first house that we found is Rumah Ulu. Rumah Ulu ini adalah rumah yang berada di wilayah Sumatera Selatan. So Rumah Ulu is from South Sumatra. Nah, jadi Rumah Ulu ini dari Sumatera Selatan ya. Terus dari Sumatera Selatan lainnya tuh ada Rumah Limas dan Rumah Gudang. Ini aku nunjukin Rumah Ulu yang ada di Taman Mini Indonesia Indah. Second house is from Sumatra Selatan, from South Sumatra. That is Rumah Cagar Gudang Palembang. This is the house. Okay guys, so this is Rumah Adat from Riau. I'm gonna show it to you guys. Okay, I'm gonna flip it back. This is Rumah Lontok from Riau. Wow. This is Rumah Atap Panjang from Riau. Rumah Atap Panjang. Wow. The genteng is so long. Now I'm gonna show you guys the houses from Jambi. So this is Sumatera Barat house, Rumah Adat Sumatera Barat. So here we are at the Anjungan Pemerintah Aceh. We're now gonna see the house of Aceh. There's also a plane. Okay, but we're gonna go this way. Oh, so this is the Aceh house. Wow. What is this? Oh, it's a bell. on the South Kalimantan. The house I'm gonna show to you guys. This is East Kalimantan or Kalimantan Timur.
Baby, only you. 내가 힘들 때, 울 것 같을 때, 기운도 이제 나지 않을 때. It's you, 어렵게 하니 말은 해도.
Okay guys, so now we are waiting for the bus. The bus go to the Monas is the number 1. It's really like it's been a while since we go to this, since we arrived at this busway. I'm with my mom. Just arrived at Balai Kota Halte after a bus trip. This is Balai Kota Halte. Now we're gonna go to Perpusnas. That one. Okay, so the first object is bamboo. Bamboo. I'm gonna show it to you guys. Okay. This is bamboo. Bamboo. North Sumatra, South Sumatra, Ancient Sundanese. Bambu ini dari Sumatera Utara, Sumatera Selatan, Sunda Kuna. Nah, the type of bamboo is used as a script. Depends on the shape you want to produce. In North Sumatra, bamboo that is considered good is smooth-skinned bamboo called bulu seraton, which is already old. While in Palembang, bamboo which is considered the best quality is betuang bamboo. Dendrocalamus asper. These manuscripts from bamboo are called gelumpai in South Sumatra. Young bamboo is too prone to be attacked by insects. Scripts and ornaments on bamboo media are written using a pointed knife. The writing follows the length of the bamboo section. The bamboo book parts are usually flattened or decorated with ornaments. The knife stalks are then blackened using the candle nuts, which are burned to produce oil. The mixture of black and thick ash and oil will stick to the strokes, marks of the knives, and produce a contrasting color on the surface of yellowish-brown bamboo. That is the explanation of bamboo. Bambu ini berasal dari Sumatera Utara, Sumatera Selatan, Sunda Kuna. Nah, jenis bambu yang dijadikan bahan naskah tergantung pada bentuk yang ingin dihasilkan. Di Sumatera Utara, bambu yang dianggap baik adalah bambu berkulit halus yang disebut bulu seraton. Terus usianya tuh udah tua, bulu seraton. Sedangkan di Palembang itu ada bambu yang dianggap paling baik kualitasnya, yaitu bambu betuang atau Dendrocalamus asper. Naskah-naskah dari bambu ini disebut gelumpai. Di Sumatera Selatan, bambu yang muda terlalu lawan terhadap serangan serangga katanya. Aksara maupun ornamen pada media bambu ditulis menggunakan sebuah pisau raut yang runcing. Bagian buku bambu biasanya diratakan atau disias dengan ornamen. Baik, terus bekas goresan pisau kemudian dihitamkan dengan menggunakan kemiri yang dibakar hingga mengeluarkan minyak. Campuran abu dan minyak yang hitam dan pekat itu akan menempel pada bekas goresan pisau. dan menghasilkan warna yang kontras pada permukaan bambu yang coklat kekuningan. Second object, we got daun lontar. Nah, daun lontar ini dari Jawa kuno, asalnya Sunda kuna, juga Lombok Bugis. Nah, daun lontar. Daun lontar ini aku kasih tahu. Let me flip it back. Nah, daun lontar merupakan sejenis daun galem Borassus Fallebeliever. Daun ini diolah sedemikian rupa menjadi alat tulis yang berkualitas. Kata lontar sebetulnya bentukan metatesis dari kata Jawa kuna rontai yang berarti daun tal, yakni daun pohon tal. Sebelum diproduksi sebagai alat tulis naskah, daun lontar dipilih dan dipetik. Bagi orang Bali, bulan terbaik untuk pemetikan ini adalah bulan Kartika, September atau Oktober. Kasanga atau Kadasa, yang mana Maret atau April, dan sebelum naik bulan purnama. Di luar bulan-bulan tersebut, kualitas lontar dianggap kurang baik untuk dijadikan bahan tulis. Pohon yang baik terutama yang tumbuh di daerah kering dan di wilayah pesisiran. Hasil akhir produksi daun lontar yang ingin dihasilkan adalah daun lontar yang kering dan tahan terhadap serangga. Daun yang telah menjadi alat tulis ini ditulisi oleh alat tulis khusus sejenis pisau yang disebut penguprak di Bali atau peso pangot di Sunda. Selain digunakan secara luas di Bali dan Jawa, naskah lontar juga pernah dipakai di Sulawesi Selatan yang menyebabkan kemungkinan hubungan antara kata lontara dan lontar. Meskipun saat ini lontara berarti naskah dalam bahasa Bugis lontar disebut tak, dan dalam bahasa Makassar disebut taya. Jika di Jawa, bentuk naskah lontar berupa lembaran-lembaran terpisah yang disatukan dengan tali pengikat dan dijilid dengan kayu pengapit. Di Sulawesi Selatan, bentuk naskah lontar betul-betul unik. Ukuran lontarnya bisa mencapai puluhan meter dan lebarnya hanya sekitar 1,5 cm. Panjangnya yang luar biasa ini dijahit dan dikulung dalam sebuah gulungan sehingga bentuk naskahnya mirip dengan gulungan kaset. Naskah-naskah berbentuk unik khas Sulawesi Selatan ini jumlahnya sangat sedikit. Untuk menghasilkan lontar sebagai alat tulis, pertama-tama daun yang belum dipotong dikeringkan di bawah sinar matahari yang menyebabkan warnanya berubah kuning pucat. Kemudian daun dicuci pada air mengalir atau dalam bak air yang selalu diganti airnya setiap hari selama 3-4 hari. Setelah itu daun dipotong sesuai ukuran yang diharapkan dan ijuk pada daun dilepaskan. So, the third object is daluang atau daun daluang. Nah, daluang atau daluang ini gambarnya seperti berikut. Nah, seperti inilah daluang. Daluang ini dari Jawa, Melayu, Sunda. Kata daluang sendiri sudah disebut sejak abad ke-9 dalam Kakawin Ramayana pada Kakawin Sumanasa Santaka abad ke-12 dan merujuk pada jenis pakaian dari kulit kayu yang digunakan kaum pertapa. Naskah daluang yang tertua saat ini diketahui adalah naskah yang disebut Kitab Undang-Undang Tanjung Tanah yang berasal dari sekitar abad ke-14. Naskah-naskah yang berbahan daluang terutama berasal dari Jawa, Sunda, Madura. Selain terdapat contoh kecil dari Sulawesi Selatan dan Sumatera, produsen yang masih aktif dalam membuat daluang dapat ditemukan di Tunggilis, Garut, dan Tegal Sari, Ponorogo. Nah, jadi daluang itu merupakan kertas hasil produksi yang berbahan dasar kulit. So this is the typewriting machine in back then. Wow, it's like
꿈만 같겠지만 분명 꿈이 아니야 달리 설명할 수 없는 이건 사랑일 거야 방금 내가 말한 감정감이 의심하지 마 그냥
Here guys, I'm gonna explain Sulaiman, the 5 object that I found in this Museum of Christmas. Sulaiman, pengaruh budaya Cina di kawasan Sumatera sangat kuat. Perjalanan Admiral Cheng Ho berkali-kali ke daerah selatan merubah estetika daerah Sumatera dengan memperkenalkan budaya Cina kepada pejabat-pejabat daerah. Perkawinan campuran dari saudagar-saudagar Cina dengan wanita-wanita setempat membawa kebiasaan-kebiasaan untuk memamerkan keberhasilan ekonomi pada cara wanita berpakaian, berhias, berlapis-lapis. Sulaiman yang dikerjakan oleh peranakan Cina untuk pakaian-pakaian upacara dan perayaan lebih halus dari yang dibawa dari Cina. Teknik Sulaiman dikembangkan secara khas, salah satunya teknik coaching dengan bahan benang emas, di mana benang katun terbungkus oleh benang logam dieratkan pada permukaan dengan benang sutra yang lebih halus. Untuk memuaskan hasrat terhadap permukaan yang dihiasi lebih kaya lagi, para peranakan ini mereka menciptakan teknik yang dikenal sebagai atas timbul. Teknik ini digunakan benang emas. Teknik ini menggunakan benang emas yang disulamkan pada lidi yang kemudian ditarik dan menghasilkan sulaman seperti anyaman. Teknik yang lain tekat benang perak tipis dibungkus dan dililitkan kepada gumpalan kapas. Gila guys, sulaman. Okay guys, for the 6th object that I want to show you is anyaman. Anyaman. Hampir seluruh daerah di Indonesia mempunyai tradisi anyaman menggunakan berbagai macam bahan seperti rotan, bambu, bamban, dan lain-lain. Kadang-kadang digabungkan dengan bahan lain seperti kayu, diinlay seperti di Lombok. Anyaman erat hubungannya dengan kehidupan sehari-hari. Budaya bercocok tanam, pemeliharaan ternak, perikanan memerlukan banyak alat-alat yang dibuat memakai teknik anyaman. Anyaman digunakan juga untuk pembuatan bagian-bagian dari perumahan. This is the 7th object that I want to show you. There is a wayang. I'm gonna flip back the camera and explain it in bahasa. Wayang. Wayang adalah dunia legendaris pertunjukan Jawa tradisional yang berintikan wayang kulit. Dunia wayang adalah kembaran budaya yang memperdayakan realitas Jawa. Dunia yang dihuni oleh dewa-dewa, raja-raja, pangeran-pangeran yang mulia, dan yang buruk putri-putri cantik, setan raksasa, makhluk yang menaklukkan, para guru abdi, dan para perawat. Semua anggota dari keluarga budaya Jawa yang akrab, yang diikat oleh ikatan-ikatan keakraban yang juga kuat, kecintaan, dan kemaskulan. Dalam pengertian yang paling luas, kata wayang menjadi berarti sebuah pertunjukan dramatik, sebuah drama, sebuah tontonan, apakah para aktornya boneka atau manusia. So the 8th object I want to explain is mask, or in Indonesian it's topeng, and I'm gonna explain it with bahasa too. Topeng. Pada umumnya, topeng bisa diidentikan dengan muka. Topeng berfungsi menutupi atau mengganti perwujudan muka pemakainya. Peradaban dunia menunjukkan bahwa topeng memiliki perwujudan imajinasi, kreativitas, dan daya ekspresi spiritual manusia yang tak terhingga. Ada topeng yang polos seperti topeng Panji dari Cirebon, ada yang dekoratif seperti dari Kalimantan, dan ada yang ekspresif seperti topeng Cekuluk dari Bali. Penggambarannya ada yang realistis seperti topeng dari Bali, ada pula yang abstrak seperti dari Papua. Okay guys, so the 9th object I want to explain is Nagara Kertagama. I'm gonna flip it back and explain with bahasa too. Nagara Kertagama disebut juga sebagai Kakawin Desa War,
mana merupakan kakawin Jawa kuno karya Empu Prapanca yang paling masyhur. Kakawin yang ditulis pada tahun 1365 ini pertama kali ditemukan kembali pada tahun 1894 oleh J.L.A. Brandes, ilmuwan Belanda yang menyertai ekspedisi KNIL di Lombok menyelamatkan isi perpustakaan Raja Lombok di Cakranagara sebelum istana sang raja dibakar oleh tentara KNIL. Negara Kartagrama menyediakan catatan terinci pemerintahan kerajaan pada abad 14 di Indonesia, di mana azas keadilan sosial, kebebasan beragama, keamanan pribadi, kesejahteraan rakyat dijunjung tinggi. Kandungan isinya juga memberikan kesaksian mengenai sikap demokratis dan keterbukaan penguasa atas rakyatnya dalam suatu masa ketika sistem otokrasi absolut kerajaan masih dianut. Kakawin ini juga menguraikan keadaan kerajaan Majapahit yang dalam masa pemerintahan Prabu Hayam Wuruk, Raja Agung Tanah Jawa dan Nusantara. Ia bertahta dari tahun 1350 sampai 1389 Masehi. Pada masa kejayaan dan kejayaan Kerajaan Majapahit, dia menguraikan wilayah kekuasaan Majapahit yang meliputi hampir seluruh wilayah Indonesia dan sebagai negara tetangga saat ini. Di samping itu, naskah juga mengandung uraian ihwal raja dan keluarganya, kota dan wilayah Majapahit, perjalanan keliling raja, silsilah Raja Hayam Wuruk, sejarah Raja-Raja Singasari, juga sejarah Raja-Raja Majapahit dari Kertarajasa, Jayawardhana, hingga Hayam Wuruk. Naskah Negara Kertagama atau Negara Kertagama telah ditetapkan oleh UNESCO sebagai warisan dokumenter Memory of the World or MOW pada tahun 2013. Okay, so the last object that I'm gonna explain in bahasa is primbon. Primbon, naskah dengan aksara kanganga atau ulum dari kekayaan budaya masyarakat tepian sungai di Sumatera bagian selatan, mencakup wilayah Sumatera Selatan, Bengkulu, dan Lampung. Diperkirakan aksara itu tumbuh sejak abad ke-12 Masehi dan berkembang pesat pada abad ke-17 hingga 19 Masehi. Tulisan ini banyak digunakan untuk menyampaikan ajaran agama, ilmu kedokteran, petuah, dan kearifan lokal lain. Teks berisi ritual berupa serangkaian aktivitas berdasarkan keyakinan masyarakat Rejang yang dilakukan oleh pasangan suami istri dan dipimpin oleh dukun wanita yang bertujuan untuk memperoleh keturunan. Okay guys, there also a pinisi. This is a bolt. Okay, I'm gonna take it as object. Pinisi. Oke, finisi. Finisi termasuk salah satu bukti peradaban yang ada. Finisi, finisi, pinis, pinas adalah beragam nama untuk perahu kebanggaan bangsa Indonesia ini. Kata finisi yang lebih dikenal dan melambangkan pelayaran Nusantara sebagai suatu tradisi yang telah berlangsung sejak zaman prasejarah. Pinisi pun sebagai warisan budaya pun merupakan perwujudan dari tradisi dan ekspresi lisan sebagaimana diceritakan dalam salah satu fragmen kisah epos La Galigo. Disebutkan tokoh yang bernama Saweri Gading membuat kapal yang besar untuk mengarungi dunia dan mencari jodohnya. Belajar dari finisi sebagai warisan budaya bahari memperlihatkan kepada kita bahwa suatu warisan budaya meliputi beragam aspek kebudayaan mulai dari tradisi dan ekspresi lisan, seni pertunjukan, adat istiadat masyarakat, ritus dan perayaan, pengetahuan dan kebiasaan mengenai alam semesta serta kemahiran kerajinan tradisional. Makna budaya dan kandungan nilai pentingnya serta sifatnya yang unik dan khas terbatas menjadi faktor utama bahwa kita harus senantiasa bekerja sama dalam melestarikan warisan budaya bahari, bukti kejayaan maritim Nusantara. So this is the purpose nas. Oh my god. This is the lobby ya guys. 1, 2, 3, 4 floor. Oh my god, what is that? Oh, it's Nusantara map. It's Indonesia. So, look.
try to be the member of Perpusnas. This is the computer that I'm gonna include it. Okay guys, so to end the floor in Perpusnas, you can get a member card like me. This is me. So the benefits of member card is you can go into like the 18th floors, and then you can like borrow some books. There are so many benefits, and the member registration is on the 20th floor, like I said before. It's really like fast and easy. You just have to borrow like Kakak. So this is more like photo exhibition of admired and despite the life and works of her grunge. So now we're entering the pameran. The pameran of this week is admired and despite the life and works of her grunge. It's about Snow her grunge.
I wanna be your vacuum cleaner, breathing in your dust. I wanna be a Ford Cortina, I will never rust.
So in every floor there are toilets in every floor, and then this is the canteen.
You call the shots, babe. I just wanna be yours. Secrets I have held in my heart are harder to hide than I thought. Baby, I just wanna be yours. I wanna be yours. I wanna be yours. Wanna be yours. Wanna be yours. Wanna be yours. Let me be your lucky meter, and I'll never run out. Let me be the portable heater that y'all get cold without. I wanna be a setting lotion, hold your hand in deep devotion, at least as deep as the Pacific Ocean. I wanna be yours. Secrets I have held in my heart are harder to hide than I thought.
이 노래는 it's about you, baby.
Okay, so I'm arrived at the 21st floor. Right now, there is such many books, many important books, kind of like study books around this floor, and it's really crowded, but not like crowded. Many people are studying here, making scripts here, but they aren't loud. They are quiet. The situation in here is very silent. I think I must start to you guys because this is the most, I think the most great floor to study, because in this floor we can reach many things such as English lessons, technology lessons, and even we can learn IT,
they all are doing some assignment. Yeah, there's so many people who studies right now are doing some assignments. I'm gonna searching the book that I want to learn. Maybe it's very quiet right here. Everyone is studying. Even there are lots of people who study under the stairs. They're studying. I really want to read this book.
I'm the one in my zone. 다른 애들은 삐약. 저 취한 바보들 좀 봐. 지워버리지 널 부드럽게.
Okay, so in the 24th floor, there are so many collection of Nusantara stuff and also many seats to be like relaxing ourselves. And I'm now in the outdoor of the top National Library floor where I can see Monas over there. The view is really like shining. I think it's better to wear glasses. The point is, National Library is really a good place to study, to searching, because the connection is good and then the people are nice too. There are so many things that can be learned in this purpose mass, like Nusantara collections, and they're really like provide us, give us like free to read books, which is it's really a good advantage to use this and it's free, it's all free. That my vlog can show you some things to you guys, because like, so in the purpose mass every floor has toilet. There are some of Musala mosques, so you don't have to like, maybe you can searching it, but in the 19th floor it also has mosques. And also the canteen is on the 4th floor with the camera too. And then for registration to be a member of National Library, you should go to the 20th floor, and it's all free. You just have to borrow car. I don't know how to say it properly in Indonesian, but it's really like fast and easy, and the advantage we can learn some book. We can borrow some books and bring it back, and then we can like go to the upper stairs, like in the 24th floor, and also we can go to the 19th floor, which is in the multimedia room. The connection is very good, and in the multimedia room it's like a room when for the people who is like doing scripts and doing assignments. It's really good. It's really like helping not only for students, it's also helping for the adults, people who have been worked. And that's all from me. I hope you guys can be helped by my flow.